I watched the man I married fold himself around a stranger's laugh the way someone folds a map, with the practiced, intimate motions of a lifetime. The laugh landed in the motel's cheap carpet like a coin, bright and wrong. I had sat in my car so long my hands had gone numb from gripping the steering wheel. When I finally opened the door, the handle clicked like a verdict. "You're early," he said, as if meeting a stranger in a neon-lit room was the most normal thing in the world. His voice should have been the anchor. It was a buoy that bobbed away. Her coat smelled of patchouli and new leather. She smelled like business trips and hotel room shampoo. She had the saleswoman's smile, efficient, practiced, a flash that closed back on itself. He kissed her because he wanted to and because he had to know, and because somewhere inside him something had already been hollowed out. I felt the hollow in my chest answer. Before tonight, I'd admitted the first fissures as gentle accidents. Missed dinners, a number under a different name he swore belonged to an old client, the sudden habit of carrying his phone like contraband. I told myself the usual consolations: stress, distance, midlife, restlessness. I learned to live in the thin gray between explanation and fear. When the small consolations couldn't hold, the fear grew teeth. I hadn't come to this moment by chance. The woman kissing my husband had been paid to be there by me. It sounds monstrous when you say it aloud, even more so in the motel's humming light, where the air smelled of bleach and despair. But before the contract, there were earlier betrayals, night after night of him checking out of our life in increments until I could find nothing to salvage but a list of apologies he recited like prayers. He said he loved me, but the syllables were tired. I wanted to know what he'd be without me. The truth, not the stories. "You shouldn't be here," I said, stepping from the doorway into the halo of the room. My voice surprised me, steady, clinical. I watched him go colorless. He didn't reach for me. Instead, he looked at the woman like she'd been an experiment he could explain away. "Mara," he said, as if naming her could name off his guilt. Don't," I said. My hands were still. "Don't lie to me now." Mara's hand tightened at his sleeve. She was younger than I expected. There was a shame I hadn't anticipated in her, an aftertaste to her professionalism, something human. "You're the wife?" she asked, not shameful, just practical. "Yes," I said. The single word felt shocking, like admitting ownership of a wound. I had hired her to test a theory, to give my husband a choice he had been evading. I had imagined revelation like a blade. Swift, clean. I had not imagined the way the blade would wobble. He said, "I didn't mean," and the excuses stammered out like a child caught coloring on the wall. There were details, her business card, a laugh that didn't belong to our life, a lipstick-stained receipt in his pocket that he'd forgotten to burn, that I used like evidence in a trial I had no right to preside over. I wanted him to be culpable so I could be righteous. I wanted to punish because I was afraid to save. Mara folded her hands as if she had her own set of rules. "He called 2 months ago," she told me. "Said his wife was cold. Said he'd be traveling through and asked about the new collection." I thought it was another commission. Her voice was small against the motel hum. "He told me things he shouldn't have. He was easy to talk to." He flinched. His mouth moved like a trapped animal. "And you?" I asked him. I kept my hands where they were, on the steering wheel of logic, or at least what I told myself was logic. "Why did you answer?" His face was suddenly a map of small, private betrayals. "I couldn't stand the way you asked me to be a husband and made me feel like an obligation. You were always testing me. I didn't know if I existed for you anymore." He looked at me as someone might look at a ghost with their own funeral to attend. That hurt. It was worse than anger. There had always been measuring thermometers of affection I held up between us. But to be told I'd been a test felt like watching your reflection critique you. I told him simply. I asked Mara to come. Silence bloomed in the room, and then Mara laughed once, a brittle, incredulous sound. "You paid me to sleep with him," she said. Her eyes flicked to him, and then to me. "That's not how this works. You don't pay for truth." "You don't get to moralize," he snapped. "Not now." "It's not moralizing," I said. It's the one way I could be sure. You kept drifting. You kept saying you'd come back, and then you'd come back smaller. I wanted to know if you were choosing him over me. He looked at me, and for the first time that night, I saw real hurt. I didn't choose anyone, he said slowly. I ran. I didn't run toward her. Mara touched his arm, and the motion was human, comfort, perhaps, or habit. I don't care about your reasons, she said. You were honest with me about wanting something different. I didn't think about what it would mean for someone else. I had wanted exposure, not the soft complicity. I had wanted to be the one to name the wound. You could have left me, I said. Said you were done. You could have been brave or cruel. Instead you hid. So I made a cruel choice back. For a moment, none of us spoke. The room's neon buzzed like a held breath. The motel clock read 11:17, a number that would later be stamped on the day like a bruise. Then he said something that tunneled into me, colder than any accusation. You didn't test me to see if I'd cheat. You tested me to see if I'd stay. You wanted proof? You wanted to be absolved of choosing me. You wanted to make me the villain, so you didn't have to be the one to leave. I wanted to deny it, to say that was not the motive, but his words recognized a truth I'd been skating around for years. I had been afraid of being the one to end us, afraid of owning what I wanted. So instead I set a trap and pretended the trap was mine. Mara's gaze slid to me, and for the first time I saw anger not at me, but at the idea that her body had been leased as evidence. You can't buy someone's fidelity, she said. That's not how love works. I had wanted to hold him accountable and keep him on my terms. Instead, the thing I cultivated, this clever test, this moral arithmetic, left me alone in a room where every choice felt like a theft. He stood up slowly. I can't stay, he said. Not after this. Not after you made me a lesson. As he left, Mara watched him go with an expression that looked dangerously like pity. When the door clicked shut, the motel resumed its hermetic hum. I sat down on the single chair, like a verdict landing. The twist wasn't that he had been unfaithful. Anyone could have told me that. The true, terrible twist was that I had engineered his fall to prove to myself that I was worth being chosen. I had paid a woman to illuminate a truth that I could have seen in the mirror earlier, that love, when curated and inspected, can be killed by the very attention meant to preserve it. Outside, the night air tasted like rain. I stayed until my hands warmed and the world resumed its ordinary noises. I realized, with a clarity that hurt more than any evidence, that I had been betrayed by my own fear first. The rest, his leaving, the kiss, the motel's cheap light, were merely the aftermath.